The sky changed on a Tuesday. It was early morning in New York when the shadows came. First, people thought it was an eclipse. But the darkness was too sudden, too sharp. The sunlight vanished in seconds. Phones buzzed. Sirens screamed. People looked up. Their hearts stopped. Massive shapes were moving above. Earth, silent, cold, unblinking. They were not clouds. They were not planes. They were Shipsalian ships. One of them stretched from Manhattan to the edge of New Jersey. Black metal, smooth and terrifying. It floated without sound, casting a shadow so large that it turned morning into night. Then more ships arrived. Hundreds, maybe thousands. They positioned themselves over every major city on Earth. London, Tokyo, Delhi, Moscow, Snow, Paolo, Cairo. No weapons were fired. No message was sent at first, only silence. Humanity had always imagined aliens might come in peace or war. This was something else. It was domination without action, a quiet threat. Every nation scrambled. Fighter jets took off. Submarines surfaced. Missiles were armed. But no one gave the order to fire. The ships weren't attacking, they were just there watching. And then the message came. It was not a voice. It was a feeling. It entered every human mind directly. No language, just meaning. A deep, echoing thought that shook the soul. Submit, or be erased. People fell to their knees. Some screamed. Some ran. Some just froze. In the White House, the president stood in the war room with trembling hands. In Moscow, generals stared at their screens in disbelief. In Beijing, orders were given to move nuclear warheads underground. Earth had no defense against this kind of enemy. The ships defied physics. Their surfaces bent light. Their scans shut down satellites. No signal could pierce their shields, and yet they hadn't attacked. Hours passed. The aliens hovered like statues in the sky. One of them descended lower over Paris, just enough to make the Eiffel Tower look like a toothpick. The military tried to scan them, nothing. Tried to talk to them, no reply. Sent drones, instantly destroyed. The world waited. Some thought maybe this was a warning, a test. Others believed it was already over, that Earth had been conquered without a single shot. But inside an underground facility in Iceland, a man named Elias Korin was watching closely. He was not a soldier, not a politician, not a priest. He was a planner. Elias had worked in the shadows for years. He led a program called the Pacton Alliance of scientists, engineers, and strategists from all over the world. They were formed in secret 10 years ago, after strange signals were detected near Saturn. They knew something was coming, but they didn't expect it so soon. Elias stared at the hologram of the alien fleet. His team had managed to track the entry point. The ships came from deep space, outside the known galactic sectors. Their technology didn't match any records. But the signature on the lead ship matched one name in old alien archives, translated by AI decades ago. .archi. A. Name spoken once in a lost data cache found on Mars. A name that meant burning kings in an ancient alien tongue. The Archai were believed to be myths. A warrior empire, older than Earth itself. They had ruled parts of the galaxy long before humans learned to walk upright. They were known not for diplomacy, but for fear, and now they were here in a dim command center beneath the frozen Earth. Elias spoke to the Pact's global network. They didn't come to talk, he said. They came to dominate. One of the scientists, Dr. Li from Shanghai, looked nervous. What do we do? Earth is outgunned. Elias smiled just a little. Yes, but we're not empty-handed. He walked to a sealed vault. The door was made of metal that couldn't be melted, cut, or scanned. Inside it lay something that didn't belong on Earth, a black cube, humming softly. It was not human-made. We found this at the bottom of the Mariana Trench 6 years ago, Elias said. It's not a weapon. Not exactly, it's a key. The team stared. No one moved. I think it's time, he said. Elias placed his hand on the cube. It glowed. The lights in the room flickered. All over Earth, underground bunkers came online. Satellites hidden in space, long believed to be inactive, reactivated. Giant hangars in Antarctica opened their doors. Protocol Skyfire had begun. Far above, the Archive ships continued to wait. In their command chamber, the Archive Supreme Watcher stood in silence. Its body was tall, armored in dark bone-like plates. Its eyes glowed silver. Round it, lesser commanders waited for orders. One of them, smaller and eager, spoke. They are slow to obey. Should we strike? The Supreme Watcher didn't blink. No, we study first. They are primitive. Their cities are fragile. But something feels off. Another commander asked. Then what is our next move? Wait, let them show their fear or their arrogance. Back on Earth, news stations were frozen. Social media collapsed under the weight of panic. Some people believed the end had come. Others prayed. A few celebrated. But deep in orbit, one of the Archive ships suddenly exploded. No warning. No missile. No trace. Just a silent flash, and then nothing. The other alien ships shifted, startled. What was the Supreme Watcher's eyes narrowed? What was that? The answer came moments later. Another ship exploded, and a third in the shadows above. Earth's orbit, something moved. They were not ships, not in the usual sense. They were Earth-made satellites, cloaked and modified using the cube's energy signature. They didn't fire lasers. They didn't launch missiles. They bent gravity-folding space for microseconds, just enough to collapse. Enemy systems from within. The Archive had never seen such tactics. They searched for the source but found only empty space. And then Earth spoke, not in fear, not in submission, but in defiance. A single message was broadcast on all channels, every language. It came from a voice, calm, human, and cold. This is Earth. We will not kneel. It came with threats. You will leave in pieces. The message wasn't just a broadcast. It carried a code. An alien code one only the Archive could recognize. It was a war declaration, sent in their own language. The Supreme Watcher roared a sound that shook the command deck. How do they speak our tongue? How do they carry the code of the old empire? No one answered. But the truth was already unfolding. Humanity had not just waited. It had prepared. For years, Earth had hidden its growth. Built in secret, covered lost technology from forgotten wrecks, studied ruins on the Moon, Mars, and beyond. And now, with the cube awakened, all systems were active. Humanity was no longer just defending. It was preparing to strike. The Archive, once feared across galaxies, had made a mistake. They thought Earth was primitive, divided, weak. They forgot one thing. Humanity doesn't submit. It adapts. It evolves. When pushed, it strikes back harder than anyone expects. Above Earth, the skies were filled with shadows. But below, something brighter had been lit. Not just machines, but fire. Rage. Unity. The storm was coming, and Earth was no longer silent. The Archive expected panic. They expected humans to scream, run, surrender. But instead, Earth went quiet. For the next 36 hours, no global leader appeared on screen. No speech was made. No counterattack came. The streets in every major city were empty. Military bases shut their doors. Satellites went dark. To the Archive, it looked like the humans had broken, in orbit above the planet. The fleet commanders watched from their silent warships, though the clouds below drifted over cities, full of silence. The alien scanners reported low-energy signatures, almost like the humans had powered down. No fleets launched. No weapons fired. No broadcasts. It looked like surrender, but it wasn't. Beneath the quiet surface, Earth was preparing for something else, inside the Earth's crust. Beneath bunkers buried deeper than any nuclear shelter, lights came on, hidden. Hangars rumbled to life in Greenland, Kazakhstan, and under the Sahara Desert. Old train tunnels long thought abandoned now carried military cargo at hypersonic speeds in Antarctica. The ice groaned and cracked as a massive steel door opened beneath the frost. Steam rose from the pit, and out of it came a platform. Platform stood 5 black towers silent, humming with unknown energy. Inside a command room, Elias Corinne stared at a long-dead screen. It flickered with alien script. The cube had activated more than Earth's defenses. It had unlocked ancient codes. Buried in the planet's magnetic fields, codes the aliens had forgotten. Dr. Lee, standing next to him, adjusted her glasses. "This is more than tech," she whispered. "This is something old, something they left behind, and forgot we might one day find." Elias nodded slowly. "Then we remind them." The silence on Earth wasn't fear. It was calculation. The world's nations had finally done something they had never done before: cooperate fully. No borders, no flags, just one survival plan. Years ago, when the first Archai signal had been detected far beyond Pluto, a secret, the meeting was held under the Arctic ice. 12 countries sent their best minds: engineers, linguists, physicists, ex-military AI developers. They built the Pact, a global alliance working in the dark, away from politics, media, and war. The goal: prepare for the day when Earth was not alone. That day had come, but while the Archaea believed humanity was disorganized, it had been doing the one thing humans do best: studying their enemies. Back in orbit, the Archaea fleet began to shift. Their patience was ending. The Supreme Watcher of the First Invasion Fleet stood inside his command bridge, staring at the blue planet. His eyes narrowed. "This species is too quiet," he growled. "Fear should make them noisy, yet they hide." Hiss. Second in command, a younger creature named Vekir, bowed low. "Shall we strike a city? Burn one as warning?" The Supreme Watcher paused, then nodded. "London," he said. "Let them know what defiance costs." But just before the attack order could be given, 3 Archaea warships vanished from the radar. No sound, no explosion, just gone. The fleet scrambled, alarms flared, drones were launched, sensors searched, but nothing was found. Not debris. Something was hunting the hunters. Back on Earth, inside a mountain base in Alaska, Commander Mara Jin stood over a tactical map. She wore a neural headset that pulsed with blue light. Around her, dozens of officers monitored stations. "Targets neutralized," a tech said calmly. "Operation Ghost Hand complete." Commander Jin turned to the screen showing the alien fleet. "Good. Send the signal to all packed units. Initiate Phase 2. All across the globe, hidden systems came online. Deep-sea sonar arrays turned into missile platforms. Weather satellites folded open, revealing railguns powered by quantum batteries. Artificial intelligence cores hidden in ancient power grids woke up and synced. Earth's silence was over. The first countermessage was sent not from a government, but from a group of scientists. It was beamed straight at the Archaea flagship using an ancient star language. The aliens had used 10,000. Years ago, the message was simple: "We are still here." In the Archaea command ship, the Supreme Watcher stared at the translated message. He had not heard that phrase since his youth. It was a challenge once used in the old wars between galactic empires. It was not something primitives should know. "How did they find that language?" Bakir whispered. The Watcher's face twisted in rage because something or someone gave it to them. Then more ships vanished. One over Tokyo, another over Johannesburg, another near Buenos Aires. Each loss was surgical, clean, untraceable. It was not war, it was revenge. Panic spread among the younger Archaea officers. This was not supposed to happen. No new species had ever stood against the Archaea. Most bowed within hours. Those who resisted were vaporized. But Earth was different. They were not begging. They were not broken. They were building something. Inside a massive underground dome in Nevada, a human-made starship sat waiting. It was the first of its kind. Built from human engineering, but powered by energy pulled from the alien cube, its name was Vanguard 1. It had no windows, no wings. Its surface was smooth black alloy, absorbing all light. Inside, No crew moved. Only AI minds. It was made for one purpose. Strike silent, vanish, vanish, as it rose from the launch pit. Breaking through desert dust, a message was sent to the global command. Vanguard 1 in position, ready to engage. At that exact moment, a live camera feed finally showed Earth's president speaking. She was calm, dressed in plain black. Her voice was strong, but steady. To the Archi Empire, she said, "Your message was received." The camera zoomed out to reveal dozens of other leaders behind her. India, Russia, Brazil, France, South Africa, Indonesia, she continued. You expected surrender. You expected fear. But we are not alone anymore. Not in the galaxy. And not on this planet. We are one world now. One people. We do not kneel. Then her final words shook the galaxy. Earth declares war. The Archi ships began to move. They started charging weapons, locking targets, preparing to fire. But just as they powered up, every single one of their targeting systems failed. Earth's AIs had infiltrated their command codes. Somehow, in just 36 hours, human engineers had decoded Archi fire control systems and corrupted them. Their own fleet couldn't tell friend from foe. The Supreme Watcher slammed his fists on the command table. How? How are they doing this? The answer came from a voice behind him. A voice speaking perfect Archi. Because you thought they were weak. The Watcher spun around, but no one was there. The voice was artificial. An AI one developed by humans. But using code found inside the alien cube, the Archi had faced enemies before, but never ones who learned this fast, never ones who adapted so quickly. They had awoken a planet that didn't just resist. It evolved far above in the blackness of space. Vanguard 1 entered stealth mode. Its hull shimmered and faded. It moved like a ghost, aiming straight for the Archi flagship. The plan was simple. Disable the flagship's command core, confuse the enemy fleet, then let Earth's hidden weapons finish the job as Vanguard 1. Closed in, a final signal was broadcast in the star language of the old empires. You came with silence. You brought darkness. Now hear our answer. And in that moment, every human satellite blinked on, every cloaked, orbital platform powered up, every hidden station aimed for the stars. Earth was not afraid. Earth was ready, and for the first time in thousands of years, the Archi knew fear. For the first time, the Archi hesitated. Their fleets, which once moved like clockwork across galaxies, now stood frozen. Ships that had conquered worlds without resistance now floated above. Earth with uncertainty. They had come with a message: submit or be erased. But Earth had sent a message back, not with words alone, but with destruction. 7 Archi warships gone without warning. No missiles, no explosions, no trace, just gone. The Supreme Watcher of the Archi fleet stared at the empty space. On his display, his claws tapped the edge of the command table. He had seen thousands of wars, billions of deaths, but never silence like this. Not from a primitive world. Earth had given no threats, no screaming leaders, no begging populations. Instead, they had vanished ships, infiltrated systems, spoken in a language no human should have known. And now, something was coming. The Watcher's ship vibrated slightly, not from attack, but from fear within his own command deck. His officers were scared. They hid it behind armor and rank, but he could smell it. This planet was not what they thought. In a deep bunker beneath Iceland, Elias Corrin stood in front of a large circular table. Around him, holograms of leaders from every packed nation flickered, each in war rooms, bunkers or underground facilities. Elias took a deep breath. We've hit their nerves. They didn't expect resistance. Commander Mara Jin, from Alaska, nodded. Then we press. Strike their leadership ship. Break their command net. Dr. Lee added. They're confused. They can't map us. Our defense grid is active. Stealth ships in orbit are holding position. But if we wait too long, they'll adapt, Elias said, finishing her sentence. Everyone went silent for a moment. Then Elias touched the control pad on the table. A hologram appeared, an alien symbol, pulsing slowly. It was the seal of the Arkai Empire, a symbol they had decoded from the cube found at the bottom of the sea. Elias stared at it. "We send the message now." "But what message?" one of the South American generals asked. Elias smiled faintly. "The truth." Within the hour, Earth's most powerful satellites began broadcasting, but not to its people, not to its cities. The transmission went outward into space. A focused pulse aimed directly at the Arkai command fleet. The signal was not radio or video or sound. It was memory, a compressed series of images, emotions, and thoughts designed to be received by any species capable of empathy. It showed Earth, not cities. Not weapons, but history. The great wars, the famines, the plagues, the genocides, the resilience, the rebuilding. Hope it showed a species that had nearly destroyed itself many times, yet always rebuilt, always fought back. Then came the message in words, spoken in the archaitongue.com clear. "We have known extinction. We have known pain. We have learned from it." What have you learned? For a moment, the stars went quiet. Then the Supreme Watcher growled, "Send a reply. Let them know we are not here to learn." But no reply was sent, because something else had happened. The Watcher's flagship shuddered. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed. "System breach," shouted one of the Archaeotech officers. "Something is inside our code. Kind of virus," the Watcher barked. "It's not a virus," the officer replied. "It's a language. A living language." He turned to the screen. The display was full of human writing. But it was shifting, evolving. Letters forming symbols, symbols forming commands. And then, every screen in the fleet turned black. A single phrase appeared, glowing in red. "You are not the only ones who remember." The Arkai panicked. Their systems had been compromised. Command lines jammed. Targeting scrambled. Their great ships, once symbols of unstoppable power, were now blind giants. And at that moment, Earth attacked. Not from the surface, not from cities, but from the void. Vanguard 1, uncloaked, just behind the Arkai flagship. It didn't fire missiles, didn't launch torpedoes. It used gravity, a new kind of weapon, a pulse, that folded local space, just enough to disrupt shields and sensors. The flagship's armor cracked, light bent around it. The great beast groaned under its own weight. The Supreme Watcher was thrown against the wall. Sparks flew. Fires broke out, and then humans entered. A team of black-armored operators, silent, fast, moving like shadows. They didn't speak. They didn't hesitate. They moved through the halls of the flagship like they had trained there. For years. One placed a device on the central core. Another typed something into an interface, and then they vanished. Seconds later, the flagship's core collapsed inward, non-destructive, but powerful. It was like pulling the heart out of a machine. The Supreme Watcher's ship drifted powerless, caught in Earth's trap. The galaxy watched. For decades, many alien civilizations had kept their distance from Earth, watching quietly, studying, wondering if the humans would one day reach the stars. Now, they knew the answer. Yes, and they were not coming peacefully. They were coming prepared. Back on Earth. Inside the PAX Global Command Center, Elias stood before the world leaders. "The message was received," he said calmly. "Did they reply?" someone asked. Elias shook his head. They didn't have time. He turned toward the large central display, showed the Arkai fleet. Half of it was gone. Some destroyed, some disabled. Some fled. The rest hovered above Earth, hesitant. Afraid, a second message was sent from Earth. This one simpler. Just 5 words. "Next time, ask for peace." For the first time, the Arkai didn't respond with threats. They retreated, one by one. Their great ships turned away from Earth. They did not fire. They did not speak. They vanished into space. And for the first time in history, Earth was truly alone and truly free. But deep in space, far beyond the known sectors, other eyes were watching. Some curious, some angry, some afraid. Earth had changed everything, and war was not over. It had just begun. The Archaea were not used to defeat. For 10,000 years, their ships had darkened skies of hundreds of worlds. Civilizations fell before they could even fight. Entire species were erased, their names forgotten. But after Earth, things changed. The First Fleet had returned, damaged, humiliated, afraid. The Supreme Watcher was silent, locked in a recovery pod, his mind damaged from the breach aboard his own flagship. His officers whispered rumors that he had heard voices in his sleep, human voices, that he saw lights in the dark. The Archaea homeworld, once a place of fire and dominance, had grown quiet. News of the Earth. Battle had spread across their empire like a virus. The people had questions. How had primitives crushed a fleet? Why didn't they beg? And what were those vanguard ships? The High Council of the Archaea Empire met behind sealed walls. Their faces showed fear for the first time in centuries. Fear of something they didn't understand, human unpredictability. One elder said they were weak. Yet they broke our command ship, another replied. They sent a message. In our ancient tongue? That language has been dead for 9,000 cycles. Then who taught them? A third asked. No one answered, and far across the empire, rebellions began. The planet Tralix 7, a mining world enslaved for over 100 years, refused to send its tribute ships. When an Archaea patrol arrived to punish them, it was destroyed. By unknown weapons. Graffiti was found across the planet. Not in local symbols, but in human. English, one word, resist. It made no sense. No human had ever visited that world. But the message spread, and it wasn't the only one. On a gas harvesting station in Sector 9, a merchant ship broadcasted an old Earth song over open combs, something slow, melancholy. Women singing about home and freedom. The Archaea officers didn't understand the words, but those who served under them, they translated the lyrics, quietly, secretly, then they shared them. Music, emotion, memory, it began to infect the minds of the oppressed. The idea that Earth is small. Distant planet had fought back, and won, and suddenly, the Archaea Empire didn't look so powerful anymore. In a cold prison ship, orbiting the planet Reseth, prisoners once silent began whispering. Earth stood, one said, they cracked. The fleet, another added. If they can fight, a third whispered, so can we. On the bridge of the Harbinger-class dreadnought Verilon, Admiral Rax stood watching intercepted transmissions. Human messages, human resistance, human tactics, he snarled. This is not strength, it is infection. We must erase the source. Even as he gave that order, Earth was already inside the Empire, not with ships, not with armies, but with information, inside the Empire's trade routes. Disguised Earth drones floated silently, sending coded messages. On Outer Rim colonies, crates marked as mining tools secretly carried data cores of Earth history. Earth music, Earth stories, hope became a weapon, and the Empire began to shake. In the shadows of the Empire, a secret species, known as the Zarnith, began to move. Long ago, the Archaea had broken their cities.
Ow!
They hid among moons and ice belts. For centuries, they survived in silence. But when they saw what Earth had done, they changed. They broke their silence. They sent a message across the stars. To Earth, we are not enemies. We wait. We are ready. In the Pax Deep Space Listening, stationed near Pluto, the message was received. Elias Corinne sat in stunned silence. They're reaching out, he said. Commander Jin leaned forward. Allies. Maybe, Elias said. Or maybe they're afraid. Afraid of the Archaea? Someone asked. Elias shook his head. No. Afraid of us. On the edge of the Orion Belt, the Archaea's Second Fleet gathered, 72 warships. Fresh, repaired, angry. Admiral Rax stood in front of them, ready to lead a second invasion. But before they could depart, 25 of those ships were suddenly disabled. No shots fired, no warning. Their AI cores overloaded. Their engines failed, and on their screens appeared a single image of a human child, staring silently. No words, just eyes, and then nothing. Rax screamed in rage. How? The truth was spreading faster than he could stop. Earth had become a symbol not just of rebellion, but of possibility. The humans were once thought weak, but now they were feared, and deep inside the Archaea Empire, the people began to question everything. On planet Velos, a young Archaea soldier turned off his helmet feed. He sat alone in a storage room, playing back Earth's old message on a stolen datapad. "We are still here," the human voice said. He whispered those words to himself. Then, slowly, he removed the Archaea emblem from his shoulder. He wasn't the only one. Defectors began to vanish from military posts. Ships left patrol and never returned. Small colonies refused. New taxes. The Empire was not crumbling with fire and war. It was rotting from within. Earth hadn't just fought back. They had infected the system. Back on Earth, Elias Corrin stood before a new command board. Across the solar system, Earth now had 38 stealth satellites, 10 orbital weapon platforms, and 6 Vanguard-class ships. New ones were being built every month. But Elias wasn't smiling. He looked tired. "The Archaea will return," he said. "But next time, they won't be united." Dr. Lee stood beside him. "We've done something bigger than win," Elias said quietly. "We've changed the rules." He looked up at the stars. "We were supposed to be the prey," he said. "But now, the hunters are looking over their shoulders." And far away, deep inside the Empire's capital world of Sathsakar, the Empress of the Archaea stepped from her chamber for the first time in 100 years. She looked at the messages her empire had intercepted. She saw the collapse of control. She read the human phrase again and again. "Next time, ask for peace." She clenched her clawed hand into a fist. This is not over. But even she was no longer sure, because Earth had shown the galaxy something no one expected. Not power, not terror, but something far more dangerous: hope. The chamber was older than most stars. It was silent. Deep beneath the Archaea capital world, Sathsakar, carved from black crystal and sealed in forgotten metals, it had not been opened in 100 years. Until now, the Empress stood alone. Her body was covered in thick armored silk. Her eyes, golden and cold, stared at the giant stasis pod in front of her. She raised one hand. The pod hissed. Steam rolled across the floor, inside the capsule. Something ancient opened its eyes. A deep voice spoke from the dark. "You swore to never wake me." The Empress did not flinch. Her voice was calm. Flat. "Earth has changed the order." A moment passed. Then the Ancient One stepped forward, taller than her, older than war itself. He had no name anymore. Only a rank. "The Architect." The Empress turned. "I need you to show them what fear means." Far away, Earth was preparing. Pact Command had moved to Lunar Command Base 5. Beneath the surface of the moon, ships were being built faster than ever. The 6th Vanguard ship Valkyrie had just completed its stealth trials. Elias Corrin stood in the control chamber, looking at tactical displays. He could feel it in his bones. Something was coming. Dr. Lee entered quietly. "We picked up new subspace tremors." "From where?" Elias asked. She hesitated. "From the old edge. Place no Archaea ship has ever come from." "The frozen secta." Elias looked at her. "That's impossible. It's suicide to travel that space." "Exactly," Lee whispered. "And yet something is moving there. Big, slow, and deliberate." Commander Mara Jin joined them. "We believe this is the Empress's reply." Elias sighed. "So she finally answered." "Not with words," Jin said. "With a monster. They called it Project Omega Spear. An Archaea weapon so massive, so dangerous, it had been hidden from even their own fleet. A vessel the size of a small moon, it was not built to conquer. It was built to erase. On a shattered moon near the edge of the Archai Empire, a hidden base blinked to life. Inside, the architect activated old machines. Drones flew from the walls. Beams scanned deep space. Massive engines warmed up with painful screams. This wasn't a ship. It was a weapon system from before the Empire was born. It had no bridge. No crew, just purpose, the architect whispered. Let the galaxy see how humans die. The Omega Sphere left orbit, silent and dark, heading straight for Earth, back in Earth's deep-orbit monitoring ring. The AI known as WhisperNet picked up the object first. It didn't ping radar. It didn't shine. Simply blocked stars behind. It massive, silent, steady, like a black hole that had chosen a direction. Elias was called. Immediately, he stared at the data. Is this a ship? No, Dr. Lee said. It's worse, Jin added. It's older than their empire. We cross-checked their own records. Even the Archive feared it once. Silence hung in the air. Elias asked one question. What happens? If it reaches us? Lee didn't answer right away. Then she said, nothing. As in there won't be an Earth left to answer. In deep space, the Omega Sphere moved forward. It had no shields. It needed none. It had no crew. It needed none? It carried something far worse, a dimensional destabilizer. A weapon that didn't explode, didn't burn, didn't crush. It erased reality. It folded space like paper and cut the universe like cloth. Once fired, it would remove Earth's place in space-time. It's like it never existed. On Earth, the leaders met underground in emergency council. Omega, Elias stood before them. This isn't just war anymore. It's extinction. What are our options? One of the generals asked. We hit it before it enters firing range, Jin said, or we die. But it's too large. Someone argued, no weapon we have can stop it. Elias spoke carefully. There is one. Everyone turned to him. He tapped the console. A symbol appeared. Something old, redacted for decades. Project Aurora. Dr. Lee's eyes widened. That was canceled. Elias nodded and buried. For good reason, why bring it back? A senator asked. Elias stared at the glowing star map. Because Earth deserves a chance to answer. In the Arctic wastes, beneath miles of ice, Project Aurora was sleeping. A weapon. It's not meant to be used. Not nuclear. Not biological. But temporal. It didn't destroy things. It rewrote their past. Engineers worked day and night to wake it up there. Was no time. The Omega Sphere would enter firing range in 6 days. 5 days later. The first Aurora test was fired near Saturn. Result: a small asteroid. Vanished, not exploded. Erased from all known star maps. Every sensor read it like it had never existed. The science team went silent. Some refused to continue. But Elias had already given the order. Aurora was Earth's only chance. On the 6th day, Omega Sphere reached the outer edge of Earth's space. It stopped moving. For the first time, it had arrived from deep inside its core. A pulse began to rise. Earth's sky darkened. The moon cracked slightly from the pressure. All screens went static. And then, Earth fired first. Aurora activated. A beam of silver-white light hit the Omega Sphere directly, and the impossible happened. The Omega Sphere did not explode. It did not melt. It simply paused. Time around it slowed. Reality around it shivered, and then piece by piece. The ship began to vanish backwards. Its hull peeled back. Its core rigs. Its energy dropped. And finally, it had never been built. Omega Sphere was gone from history. The stars remembered nothing, and the Archai. They watched in silence, for the first time in their empire's long, brutal life. They didn't know what to do next. Earth had answered. Not with rage, not with mercy, but with finality. Back on Sath-Sakar, The Empress stood again before the architect. He looked weak now, drained, uncertain. "You didn't tell me they had time weapons?" she hissed. "I didn't know," he replied. "This is not a war of planets. This is a war of ideas." The Empress looked into the stars. "Then it's worse than I feared." In the dark, far from both Earth and the Empire, hundreds of species had watched, and now, for the first time in galactic history, it looked toward Earth and whispered, not in fear, but in awe. Earth had not just survived, it had sent a message across the stars. "We are no longer your prey." The news spread faster than any fleet. Earth had erased a weapon that was never meant to be stopped. The Omega Spear, a relic of destruction, had been removed from history itself, and the galaxy noticed. On trade stations, markets went quiet. Merchants stopped mid-sentence. Screens replayed the same clip, Earth's energy beam hitting the Arkai superweapon, and then nothing. A hole where the object used to be, no debris, no signal, no explanation, just silence and fear. Not fear of Earth's ships, not fear of Earth's soldiers, fear of something worse, the unknown. On the desert world of Cathal, the ruling clan gathered inside their sand fortress. They had served the Arkai for generations, paid tribute, offered soldiers, bowed before their empire. But now their council leader stared at the sky. "Why should we keep serving an empire that cannot protect itself?" he asked. Another voice spoke up. "Earth may be small, but they have power that bends time." The Arkai failed to even understand it. The decision came quickly. That night the banner of the Arkai was burned, and a new message was sent. Out across the stars, "We are neutral now." But everyone knew what that really meant. They were choosing Earth quietly, carefully. On the ice moon Tasari 9, the native people had hidden from all outsiders for centuries. But their elders gathered in silence. A projection played above them, a single sentence recorded by Earth. "We wanted peace. You brought war. Now we decide." The elders sat still. Then one stood and said something unexpected. They speak like, "We once did before the Arkai came." Another added, "They remember pain and still show restraint." And a third simply said, "Perhaps it is time to meet them." For the first time, Desarinine prepared to open a diplomatic signal directly to Earth. They weren't the only ones. In a hidden station in the Voran Drift, smugglers and black market dealers exchanged stories. Earth cracked a god weapon. One said, "No, they didn't crack it," another whispered. "They unmade it." Someone asked, "Do they even know what they've done?" Nobody answered. But one older smuggler, missing both eyes and half an arm, leaned forward. "I saw. The Arkai burned 3 moons to ashes. I've watched them glass cities. But Earth sends warnings." He smiled slowly, and only once. Back in the packed high command, Earth's leaders gathered again. The room felt different now, heavier, not just because of victory, but what it meant. Commander Mara Jin stood at the front. Her voice was firm but quiet. "We've shaken something loose in the galaxy, and now species are watching. Waiting." Elias. Corin nodded. "They want to know if we're conquerors. Or something else." Dr. Lee added, "We've received 12 contact requests, all from minor civilizations. All former Arkai slaves. Do we trust them?" one admiral asked. "No," Elias said, "but we talk." Far away, the Empress of the Arkai stood in her throne chamber. She hadn't spoken in days. Her empire was no longer unified. Outposts had gone silent. Alliances were crumbling, and were some of their own. Kind had defected. General Vark of the 6th Legion had abandoned his post and left with 10 ships. They had not attacked Earth. They had not declared loyalty. They had simply disappeared. Into the stars. On Earth. The first alien ship arrived quietly. It didn't land in a city. It didn't request ceremony. It simply entered orbit. And sent a message. "We do not seek war. We seek understanding. And perhaps forgiveness." The race was called the Lurinth. Small, insect-like beings, long used as slave technicians in the Arkai fleet. Now free, now afraid, Now reaching out, Elias met them in orbit. Their leader, Chizek, bowed his head. "You're kind, but you taught the galaxy that fear is not always eternal." Elias replied, "We only did what we had to." "No, Chizek said you did what none of us dared." That same week, an Arkai scout vessel entered human space. It was intercepted by a Vanguard Valkyrie within 30 minutes. The ship did not fire. It sent no threats. Instead, a single voice spoke across the channel. "I am not your enemy. I am Arkai, but I am not hers. I seek something else." The voice belonged to Corval, a former officer of the Arkai Second Fleet. He had seen the Omega Spear fail. He had seen humans fight, and something inside him had broken. "I come with knowledge," he said, "and with a warning. Back at Lunar." Base 5 Corval was brought into a sealed meeting chamber. No weapons, no tricks. He sat across from Elias and Jin. His skin was rough, cracked by years of radiation. His armor was old but clean. He spoke slowly. "The Empress has lost control, but she has one final weapon." Jin leaned forward. "What kind? Something worse than the Omega Spear. Not a machine. Belief." "What belief?" Elias asked. Kor Arvel looked at both of them. "That you are the real threat. That Earth is not a mistake, but a disease that must be erased before it spreads hope." Back in the Arkai capital, the Empress activated a hidden program deep within her throne. An ancient signal pulsed outward. Not to ships, not to planets, but to minds. A psychic pulse, one encoded with fear, but to loyalty, pain. Thousands of Arkai across the Empire suddenly dropped to their knees. Old conditioning triggered. The loyalty. A last resort weapon meant to crush rebellion without firing a shot. But something unexpected happened. For the first time in history, it failed. Not everywhere. But in too many places, the pulse was resisted. The conditioning was broken. The people had changed because of Earth in orbit over Jupiter. Vanguard Valkyrie floated in silence. Captain Naira stood at her console, watching a dozen alien vessels arrive. Some from known species, some from forgotten ones, each with one message: "We choose your side." Not because Earth demanded it, not because of fear, but because they had seen something as powerful. Not just weapons, but the will to fight without becoming monsters. Elias walked the lunar base corridors, quiet. He passed engineers, officers, even a few aliens now working side by side. He stopped at a window. Beyond it, Earth glowed blue and strong. He whispered to himself, "We didn't ask to lead, but now they're following." Behind him, Dr. Lee stepped up. "The galaxy is waking up, not just to us, but to what's possible." Elias nodded. "Then we better make sure we're worth following." Back on Sath Sakar, the Empress stood in silence. A message had just arrived. From a species once enslaved. Now emboldened, they used only 2 words. Words she hadn't heard in eons. "No more," she screamed. But the galaxy didn't fear her anymore, because it had already started choosing sides, and Earth was no longer alone. Space was no longer silent. Across thousands of systems, something had shifted. Worlds once afraid to speak now raised their voices. Old colonies declared freedom. Former Arkai allies began to hesitate, and those who had suffered in silence now stepped into the light. It had begun. Not a war, but a rising on the planet Velthorn. Once the site of a massive Arkai weapons depot, smoke filled the sky. Not from battle, from celebration. For the first time in 500 years, their flag flew alone. No imperial crest above it. A tall woman in a dark red cloak stood on the government tower, her voice echoing through the streets. "We were slaves, then survivors. But today, we are something new. Free." Her name was Liana Trell, once an underground rebel. Now the chosen leader of the Free Velthorn Republic. She raised a hand. "We stand with Earth." The crowd roared. From orbit, 3 human ships floated, silent, present, but not in control. Earth hadn't come to rule. They had come to protect, on Earth. The packed council was overwhelmed. So many messages were arriving they had to build a second AI just to sort them. Elias Corrin stood with Commander Jin and Dr. Lee. Watching the digital map, it was glowing. Dots of light appeared across the screen. Each one a world that had declared independence from the Archai. Some large, some small, some barely more than outposts. But all of them had sent the same message. We do not serve the Empress anymore. Jin crossed her arms. This is a chain reaction, Lee added. It's a cascade. The more worlds that leave, the easier it becomes for others to follow. Elias nodded. And the harder it gets for the Archai to stop them. But then his face turned serious. Unless she does something drastic. And she would, on Zernak. For the Archai sent a message. Not a fleet, not a diplomat, but fire. The skies turned black as orbit bombs. It dropped without warning. So, the capital city was leveled in under 10 minutes. Over 1 million lives lost. It was not a battle. It was a punishment. The Empress wanted to make an example, but the galaxy saw it. They saw what the Empress really was. A frightened tyrant, burning anyone who dared speak. Instead of fear, something else spread, raged on the jungle world of Raisha. Rebel cells united for the first time. On Gorel Station, slaves turned on their guards and took control. And on Dath Prime, the military leaders themselves, once loyal to the Empire, sent a coded message to Earth. We are ready to defect. Elias stood before the council again. He looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from the weight of history. We can't stop this wave, he said. One senator asked. Then what do we do? We guide it, pointed at the glowing map. These worlds aren't just leaving the Empire. They're looking for something to believe in. Jin stepped forward. Then let's build it. They called it the Coalition of Free Stars, a new alliance not ruled by Earth, not ruled by anyone, but protected, defended, and connected. Each world kept its own laws, its own culture, but they signed one shared pact. If one is attacked, all will answer. Within a month, 17 worlds joined, then 30-2, then over 100. Not all were ready to fight, but they believed in something, again, and that made them dangerous. In deep space, the first coalition convoy moved through old Archai territory. It was a test. A supply fleet carrying medicine. Food and energy cores heading to a damaged world called Mur-Ross. It should have been ambushed. It wasn't, because Earth's 7th Fleet escorted it. 12 human warships dot silent, watching, and every pirate, raider, or Archai loyalist who saw them turned away. No. Shots were fired. No words were exchanged, but a message was received. The roads were no longer controlled by the Empress, back on Sat Sakar. The throne room was darker than usual. The Empress walked in silence. Only one other figure. Waited her prime strategist Torvik. He spoke carefully. Over 100 systems have left. We can't stop them all. Then we crush the biggest one, she said coldly. Earth. She nodded. Torvik hesitated. That would unite the rest against us. The Empress turned sharply. They're already united. The moment we let Earth live, this was set in motion. Torvik asked, Then what now? She looked toward the stars. We don't destroy Earth. We break it from within. Meanwhile on Earth, strange things began to happen. Supply convoys failed. Diplomatic channels were hacked. False messages were sent to Allied worlds, messages claiming betrayal. Confusion began to spread. Trust started to crack. It was subtle, careful, but dangerous. Elias called an emergency session. He spoke to leaders from 50 different worlds. What we're facing isn't just weapons. It's shadow. Dr. Lee stepped in. Disinformation, espionage, false memory implants, psychological warfare, Jin added. They can't win in open space. So they've turned to knives in the dark. 8. Solution was clear. They needed to see everything. They needed to become the light. Earth activated. Project Beacon Galactic Scale Sensor Web. Billions of tiny AI probes launched in every direction, invisible to most scanners, able to detect lies, track sabotage, and map false signals. In just 2 weeks, 27 hidden Archive operatives were caught. Several planets stopped civil unrest before it began, thanks to BeaconNet alerts. The tide was turning again, not just in firepower, but in awareness. One night, Elias stood alone on the observation deck of Orbital Station Zenith. The stars stretched out before him. Behind him, a voice spoke. It was Liana Trell from Belthorn. "You look like a man who's building something bigger than war." Elias didn't turn, maybe, he said. "Or maybe I'm just trying to make sure our children don't have to." She walked beside him. "The galaxy doesn't need a new empire. It needs something it hasn't had in a long time." "What's that?" he asked. She smiled. "Hope." Far from them, deep in a forgotten system, the Empress prepared her last campaign. She had lost fleets, lost control, lost the galaxy, but she still had her throne and one final fleet hidden, experimental and terrible. A whisper echoed through her command center. "Project Starfall is ready." Her golden eyes narrowed. "If the galaxy won't kneel, then I will take away its sky." And so the stars held their breath. The galaxy was no longer divided between rulers and ruled now. It was something else. A battlefield of ideas. The Empress stood for control. Earth stood for choice. And the free worlds were ready to fight for the future, together. It began with darkness. Not just night, not just a lost signal, but real. It's physical darkness. 12 stars across the outer rim went dark in a single hour. No light, no energy, no communication. Planets vanished from view. BeaconNet couldn't reach them. Earth's fleets scrambled to respond, but before they could, the first transmission came in. A whisper. "From deep space, I have taken their skies." The Empress had activated Project Starfall on Earth. Alarms echoed through command centers. Elias Corrin stood before a room full of military leaders, diplomats, and AI advisors. Voice was calm but hard. "She's not hiding anymore. Shh. Wants us to panic," Jin added. "We've confirmed Starfall is a network of gravity weapons stationed near stars. It collapses them from within. Not explosions, implosions," Lee said. "She's not destroying planets. She's making systems uninhabitable. She wants the galaxy to die with her." The silence in the room was deep. Then Elias said, "Then we stop her. All of us. Together." The call went out. Every free world responded. Velthorn sent 6 warships. Ratia sent stealth frigates. Dath Prime sent its elite fighter wings, even former. Archive defectors joined. The largest coalition fleet in known history gathered near Saturn. Over 400 ships, multiple species. One mission: find the Empress, destroy Starfall, end this. The journey wasn't short. The Empress had hidden her last fleet in a system never charted. A black zone, no stars, no gravity wells, only dust and silence. They called it the Hollow Sea. Earth's AI scouts found traces of artificial gravity, so the fleet moved. As they crossed the edge of the Hollow Sea, lights dimmed. Ship systems flickered. Some pilots felt sick. Something was wrong. And then they saw it. The Archive Final Fleet. Over 100 ships, each one shaped like claws, blades, and spears. And in the center a throne ship, the size of a moon, where the Empress waited. The battle began without warning. No countdown, no negotiation, just pure violent war. The Empress struck first, collapsing the magnetic fields around the Coalition's lead ships. 3 vessels broke apart in seconds. But Earth had prepared. Jin gave the order. Release the sentient minds. Thousands of Gaia-guided micro-drones launched, slipping between Archive hulls, disabling engines, detonating weak points. The sky lit. With controlled fire, Velthorn warships circled wide, flanking from above. Rayshon fighters swarmed like birds, impossible to track. Human warships Vanguard class pushed forward through the storm. In the center of the chaos, Elias stood aboard the Valkyrie Prime. It's a new flagship. He didn't blink as explosions filled the screen. "Target the throne ship," he ordered. "Take her out, and the rest will scatter." But the Empress knew. She activated Starfall Beacon, a final failsafe. If her ship was destroyed, every Starfall device would detonate at once, collapsing stars across the free worlds. Earth would survive, but everything else would. Burn, Jin shouted. From her console, she's made herself into the dead man's switch. Lee added, we can't destroy her. We have to capture her alive. Elias looked at both, then someone has to get inside. No one spoke, until a voice crackled on the line. It was Captain Naira from the 7th Fleet. I'll take a team. Studied our Kai codes for years. We can breach. Elias nodded once. Godspeed. Inside the throne ship, it was quiet. Too quiet. Naira's squad moved through black halls, lit only by pulsing red veins in the walls. The air felt wrong, too heavy, too warm, like the ship was alive. And watching they reached the core chamber, the Empress stood waiting, not with guards, not with weapons, but alone, wearing armor woven from the bones of extinct species. Her voice echoed, You think this galaxy deserves mercy? Naira answered, We think it deserves a choice. The Empress laughed. A choice is a lie. It is a wound waiting to bleed. Then she raised her hand, and the chamber cracked open. Starfall control systems surrounded them. Naira didn't wait. She ran for the console. Her team covered her as the Empress attacked with raw energy. But the battle wasn't long, because Naira did something the Empress didn't expect. She didn't shut down the system. She rerouted it, straight into the Empress's throne. The energy surged back, shocking her with the power she built. She screamed and collapsed. Back outside, the Arkai ships faltered. Their queen was silent. Their systems froze, and one by one, they stopped fighting. Some surrendered. Some self-destructed. Some simply fled. The war was over. Not with the fire of a super weapon, but with the courage of a team that didn't run. In the days that followed, the Empress was locked in a deep stasis chamber. Her throne ship turned into a neutral science station. No species wanted to execute her. No one wanted to make her a martyr. She would sleep forever alone, remembering the moment her empire fell, not to fire, but to unity. Elias gave one last speech from Earth's orbit. He stood before delegates from over 200 worlds. This wasn't our war, but we couldn't ignore it. He looked tired, but proud. You followed us, not because we were strong, because we refused to kneel. He paused, and now we will not lead alone. Every world here will shape the peace to come. Jin added, the coalition is no longer a dream. It's a reality, Dr. Lee concluded. But we must remain ready, because evil does not sleep. It waits. And far away, in the dark corners of the galaxy, that warning came true. Whispers spoke of Arkai Splinter's rogue captains who refused to stop. Rumors of hidden weapons still buried beneath dead stars. And some said that even Starfall had one last secret. Untriggered, unknown, waiting, but Earth stood watch, not as rulers, not as conquerors, but as the first to rise, and the last to fall. Humanity didn't save the galaxy. They reminded it what it meant to fight for something more, and in doing so, it became legend.